Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Masks Off. I am Kim Gross, and this week I have with me, drum roll, because it is my very first young person, and Meeka Kruisman is 18 years old. 18 freaking years old, and she has an absolute amazing story to tell. When we first connected online and I first met you and you told me your story, I had full body chills the whole time. You had me like teary-eyed the entire time. So I just am so excited and grateful that you wanted to do this episode. And I think it's so important what you're doing. But before we do jump into our conversation together, I will begin with a quote as I normally do. And the quote that Meeka shared is, "Remember, God said with a smile, I have sent you nothing but angels." So welcome Meeka, for being on the show. I'm so excited. And well, first of all, what does that quote mean for you? Like, how and why does that quote resonate that you shared it with me?
Well, it's actually from a children's book called The Little Soul in the Sun. I highly recommend reading it. Again, it's a children's book, but it's so beautiful. Um I remember like my first time hearing it, what the book meant to me is it's about this little soul who tells God, God, I remember, I know who I am. And God says, who are you? And little soul goes, I am the light. God's like,
Mm.
yes, you are. And little soul says, now that I know that I am, is it okay for me to be it? God's like, you want to be what you already are? And the little soul's like, yes. And God shares with the little soul that he's like a candle in the sun. Like the sun wouldn't be as bright without the candle there. No, it wouldn't be the sun. But you can't experience that single candle when it is in the sun. And so then God comes up with this to send them to earth, to send them here, where they can experience the darkness. So this little soul wants to experience forgiving. That's the thing that this little soul wants to experience. And so he's like, I want to experience forgiving. And God's like, that's great. But how are you going to experience forgiving? And little soul's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I created nothing but angels. Who is there to
Mm.
forgive? And then a friendly soul comes to the little soul and says, I'll come into your next life and I'll give you a reason to forgive. I'll give you me to forgive. And the little soul gets all teary and says, but you, a soul that is so bright, sent from heaven, a literal angel, why would you dim your light and become something you're not?
Mm.
And the friendly soul says, because I love you. So they make an agreement that the little soul will come into this life and the friendly soul will do something so horrible, so terrible, will hurt this little soul, that the little
Mm.
soul can experience forgiveness. But the friendly soul asks the little soul, just promise me that you will remember who I am. Because if you do not remember who I am, then I won't remember who I am. So the little
Mm.
soul makes that promise to the friendly soul that he will remember who he is. Because if he doesn't, then eventually the little soul will also forget who he is. Someone will have to come along and remember both of them. And then that's when God reminds him, I have sent you nothing but angels.
Mm.
Because that's what I bring into my life every day when I feel pain, when I'm like knocked down. That's what I remember. God has sent me nothing but angels.
Mm.
Everyone I walked by, when I was bullied when I was younger, and those kids, they're angels. Because I experienced my light in the dark. That's when I saw my light. How am I supposed to experience my light if I am not in the dark? And for them to dim their lights, I'm so incredibly grateful for that.
Mm. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for giving that description and explanation of the quote. And actually, when we're done recording, if you want to give me like the title and author, I'll put it in the show notes so that anyone who is listening to this episode, if they want to go look for it, they can find it. So that's
Oh, yeah.
awesome. Yeah. So that'll be great. Well, okay. So tell us then, because you started to mention a little bit about your story. And again, you have such an incredible story of where you came from. Like, tell us about the pain, tell us about the darkness of where you were back then, and how it brought you to where you are today.
So I'll just start, from the beginning. When I was
Yeah.
about 4 years old, my parents got divorced, and I remember leading up to that, me and my sister, there's 3 bedrooms. My parents shared one, me and my sister shared one, my brother got his own. My brother is about one, my sister's a year older than me. So I'm just sharing a room with my sister and I'm asleep and I had a nightmare. So I go to my parents' room and they're not there. So I go downstairs and I could hear them in the basement behind a closed door fighting. And I heard our names a couple times. I heard my name a couple times, and I just ran upstairs and pretended to go to sleep. And then I was woken up. I'm not sure like the time difference, like how much time had passed, but I remember waking up again with just an eerie feeling. Again, my parents weren't in their room. And so I go downstairs and I just see my mom packing up all of her things into a trailer. And my dad was just sitting there, and I asked my mom where she was going, and she said that she's just gonna go to the store. She'll be right back. But she was there with the truck and a trailer loading up a ton of things, and I just knew she wasn't coming back.
Mm.
And as she drove off, I just sat there with my dad crying, and I just felt so alone watching my mom leave.
Mm.
And of course she didn't stay gone, but as a kid I thought I lost her.
Mm.
And I just remember going to sleep that night, and um then after that my parents were separated. Again, I was 4 at the time, and I remember living with my grandparents at one point, and we'd move around a lot. We'd live with some of my mom's partners, and I'd still spend half time with my dad, half the time with my mom. But we lived with my grandparents at one point, and when we lived with my grandparents, my dad went off to work in Virginia for 2 years. And so when he was working in Virginia, he would send little gifts home, and it was very sweet. But when he got home, it was kind of like something has changed. I remember going to the house and it not feeling like home anymore, because my dad kept the house in the divorce, but it didn't feel the same.
Mm.
It felt it just felt empty after that. And my dad was just kind of closed off, or I was closed off to that connection. And in second and kindergarten through second grade, I loved that school. I knew all the kids, and it was just such a beautiful experience. My best friends since second grade, Sam and Ellie, I'm still really close friends with. They moved to North Carolina, but we keep in touch, and they just mean so much to me. And so we moved from Grantsville to Tooele, and it's about a 10-minute drive. So it's really not that far, but for a little kid going into third grade, it means everything. Not
Mm.
being able to call or text, I just slowly lost my friends from there. And so at this new school, it's third grade, and about 8 years old. And at this new school, I couldn't fit in. No matter what I did, I was left out. That's what I saw it as. I was really bullied for my height and my size. Currently, I'm 6'3", and I've always been quite a bit taller than the other kids. Even in elementary school, I'd be as tall as the teachers. And so I would always be picked on as I'd be chosen to be the monster on the playground. They'd be playing on the playground, and I wouldn't be allowed to go up there, and no one would talk to me, no one would sit by me. I just felt so alone, and that was the first time I felt that ending my life would be easier than living.
Mm.
I just thought if it could just be over. We'd be driving in the car, and I'd be like, oh, only we could get in a wreck. I'd go to the pool and I go, oh, only if I just couldn't come up off the water.
And you're about eight
I
years old at this point?
Yeah, I was 8 years
Mm.
old. And that's just something that stuck with me. All those thoughts day and day as days went on. Just if only, just like wishing that something would happen. When I would go to bed at night, I just go to sleep crying, praying that someone would come and find me. But again, I was too scared to reach out. I didn't know how. And then I went to a different school and I met some really, really close friends after that. I was only at that school for a year. Then I went to another school. And then I had some really close friends, and then I switched schools again. And then at this new school, it's about I'm in sixth grade at this point, and I did so well at that other school. So I went Middle Canyon, third grade, Scholar Academy, fourth, fifth grade, then Excelsior, sixth grade. So at Scholar, I loved it there. I was popular. I knew a lot of people. I felt very at home. Like I could just go and talk to people. I didn't have to worry about if there's going to be someone I knew in the next class. And so at this new school, I just felt like an outcast. These kids have been together for 6 years and I'm joining in at the last year. My sister also switched schools with me, but she was a year older. And so it separated from middle school, seventh and eighth. So me and my sister like separated. And that was really hard for me. We had gone to school together this whole time. She's only a year older. And at this new school, I just remember just it being so hard. I don't really, it's hard for me to explain why it was so hard. I just remember, in the middle of the day, just making an excuse to go to the bathroom and just crying in the bathroom, just wanting to go home. It was just so difficult being there. And I jumped friend to friend to friend, just trying to find a friend. Because if I'd hang out with one person, I'd hang out with one person. Then after that, nothing would come from that. We wouldn't talk after that. And I never knew why. And I'd get into why later, but I'd hang out once. I'd go to their house and then just not talk to them again. And then seventh grade came, and my closest friend, Shannon, who I was friends with since Scholar, so fifth grade, she moved away to Arizona. And at this point, I was starting to get comfortable. I had a couple friends and not super close, but close at school. I had a couple school friends. And one of my friends from Scholar actually moved schools and was at Excelsior with me. And it was just such a low point in my life.
Did you find it hard? I'm sorry, did you find it hard to be like yourself? Did you feel like it was really hard to be who you were and you weren't fitting in, you weren't belonging with the kids at school?
Yeah, at this point, I had switched schools. I've done so many things. I was like, okay, being myself isn't working. Let's find something that does.
Yeah.
It's always been like that. Like, what mask do I wear around what people to get them to like me? It was very manipulative. Like, how can I manipulate people into liking me?
Yeah.
Is really what it was. And in seventh grade, I was in theater, and I wrote a suicide note, and I put it in my locker, and no, I put it in my friend's locker. It was a way of reaching out. I'm not sure why I did it. I remember writing the note in class and not knowing what to do. And my friend looked over and she saw me writing the note. And then she's like, "What are you writing?" And I was like, "Oh, nothing." And then at the end, I remember putting a happy ending to it, is what I saw. And I was like, "Oh, no, I'm just writing like a screenplay or something like that," because it was in theater class. And so I put like a happy ending to it. I don't remember what I wrote, but then I put it in my friend's locker. And then the next day, my friend came up to me from Scholar, a different friend. She came up to me and said, "Ava's going around telling everyone that you wrote a suicide note. Is that true? She's telling everyone that you're depressed. Is that true?" And at this point, it's like, if you're depressed, then that's something horrible, like looked down on.
Yep.
especially at my school. It was something that was extremely like, wow, you need help. And
Yeah.
so I was like, no, no, she's just lying. And then my friend's like, okay, that's what I thought. But she's telling everyone. So she was going around telling everyone that I'm suicidal.
When
And
the
then
truth
I
was
went to,
that is how you were feeling. And
yeah,
again, you couldn't be true to yourself. You couldn't say how you truly felt. You had to hide.
yeah. I was just kind of, pushing away. I was in denial. I was like, no, 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 no. I'm not suicidal. I promise I'm not. Please, 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 like, get what I'm saying is what
Mm,
I was telling everyone. And I told Ava, I was like, stop telling people, please. That's not true. And I was like, where did you put that note? And then she said that she gave it to the counselor. So I went to the counselor begging him, please, please do not tell anyone. Like
mm,
this, please don't tell my mom. What I said. He's like, that was you that wrote that. And I was like, yes, it was. Didn't you know? He's like, no, I didn't know. And I realized like at that moment, like I screwed up. Like
mm,
by going to him now, he knows that I was the one that wrote it. So he's
mm,
like, please do not tell my mom. I'm going to tell her. And he was like, okay, I won't. But if you do not tell her, I will. So I was like, okay. I went home that day and I took a nap. I was constantly tired. So I took a little nap and my mom woke me up and she said, get in the car, we're going. And I didn't know where we were going, but when we got there, it was a mental hospital.
mm.
And I remember taking off my clothes with someone in the room, sitting on the bed, and just feeling so ashamed.
Mm,
My mom asked me if I was doing it for attention, and I just remember wanting to be normal. But I kept telling myself, why couldn't I be normal? Why
mm.
couldn't I have just done it? Or why couldn't I just fit in? That's just the thoughts that kept going in my head over and over. Why couldn't I have just done it already? Or why? And then as soon as I thought that, I immediately got more ashamed because I grew up LDS and, committing suicide is a sin.
Mm,
Ending my life is a sin. And so immediately I'm like, well, now I'm going to go to hell.
yeah.
Like, so ashamed. Like, everyone knows I'm not normal. And then they came in and I would kind of tell them the truth, but just enough to get out of there. Because they would ask me questions and try to diagnose me. And again, I just wanted to leave. And at this point in seventh grade, every night I was crying in my bed. Every night. I was praying for someone to find me. I'd hide under my covers and muffle my cries with my pillow because I shared a room with my sister. And if I heard her wake up, then I just hold my breath and pretend to be asleep because I didn't want to look like I was trying to get attention. I didn't know
Yeah.
how to describe what I'm feeling. I didn't know what to do. And
And I think that that's like the hardest part for
yeah,
young people is not knowing what to do, number one, but well, and also feeling so alone and isolated with those feelings and not knowing how to reach out and ask for help either. So
mm-hmm,
you feel like something is wrong with you, and then you don't feel like you can reach out and ask, and you feel alone and isolated. And so that just compounds everything that you're going through. It just makes it that much harder and that much worse.
mm-hmm.
And do you think that do you think that this is something that young people are going through more often than not? What you experienced, would you say that this is like a very common thing for young people to be experiencing?
Oh yes. And I wouldn't even say just young, like I do a lot of volunteer work at this place called Impact Training. And they'll ask like who here has thought about ending their life? And time
Mm,
again. Like with the youth, pretty much all of them except for, one or two. With the
yeah.
adults, all of them. So it's even nowadays, I feel like it's targeted so much like the youth are depressed, but so are the adults. It's
Yeah.
mental illness isn't something that's like grown out of. And I feel like now it's just so normalized that more youth are coming forward about it. But
Mm,
the adults have been stuck doing this for years. And especially for the youth, there's like a disconnect between the youth and older people.
Yeah.
It's like you're kids, and that's
Yeah.
something that I was always like put upon, like, oh, you're younger, you're a kid, you don't know. You don't
Mm.
know what being an adult is like. You don't know what life is like. And so immediately I felt disconnected from these adults. And that's something I loved with my experience at Impact is I'm
Well, tell
going.
us a little bit about Impact, how that helped you, how that was like a big turning point for you.
Yeah, I went through Impact when I was 16. And it's of course 18 or older, but I had done the teen program, and so they knew I was mature enough, so they let me do it at 16. And I remember the first day what I shared. Um, the facilitator said something along the lines of, "Who's here to change their life?" Something like that.
Mm.
I kind of raised my hand. I did it like half up, and I was looking around. I was sitting in the front row. I didn't want to be the only one with my hand up, and even when I did raise my hand up, it was halfway, just in case I need to pull it down, just in case I pull it up. This is how I think about everything. Like at this time in my life, I was thinking exactly that. As I raised my hand, I thought, okay, if I need to pull it down, I need to have it ready. But I can't be the only one with my hand not up because people will notice. And it was
Mm.
constantly like that all the time. And so I'm holding my hand about half up. The facilitator says something like, wow, look how you guys are raising your hands. Are you guys even here?
Mm.
Something along the lines of that. And he went, why are you raising your hands like that? At this moment, it was like there was a fire within me. And my hand shot immediately up, my armpit, like all the way up.
Mm.
And he calls on me. And then I shared exactly what I said earlier. I said something along the lines of, I've only put my hand halfway up because I wanted to be able to pull it down as fast as I could. I didn't want to put my hand all the way up because I didn't want to stand up. I didn't want to be chosen. I didn't want to be seen by the group. I didn't want to stick out. So I had to just fit in with everyone else.
Mm.
And so then he asked me, like, why do you feel like that? And the processing, that back and forth, the questions, the answers, this facilitator would just ask questions. But me coming forward about the answers, I had suppressed so many of my memories, just pushed them so deep down so I wouldn't remember. I remember the memories from me being bullied in third grade that was coming up. And I shared that. I shared that I didn't want to be seen. I
Yeah.
just wanted to be invisible. I just wanted to be like everyone else. And then he's like, why do you want to be like everyone else? And I just shared that it's so much easier to be
Well,
like everyone else.
well,
But
right.
that's
The
of course what I
problem.
thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought it was so much easier. And looking at it now, my life before Impact was, I describe it with like a metaphor. It's like me holding onto a moving car. I'm holding onto this car with my life, and it's tearing me apart. I'm
Mm.
getting cut, I'm getting bruised, I'm getting burned. But I keep telling myself it's so much easier than letting go because I need to hold on to this car. This car is everything to me.
Yeah.
I've convinced myself that it's so hard to let go that I've held on for so long. Then after Impact, I let go and
Yeah.
I'm healed.
Let's talk about that for a moment, because I think that's a really, really important point that you're making, because we think that it's harder to take off the masks.
Mm-hmm.
We think that it's going to be harder and scarier, because if you take the masks off and you show up as your true self and you allow yourself to be vulnerable by being imperfect and being separate, standing out, sticking out, like we think that that's going to be harder and more scary. But the truth is, what you just said, what you just called out, is that it is worse to hold on to the old, to hold on and keep those masks on so tight, because like you used it by the moving car, you're getting scraped and bruised and torn apart. And I mean, maybe we're not fully aware and conscious, but that is what's happening, because the longer we wear the masks, the longer we do not allow ourselves to be our whole selves, our whole sovereign being, we are going to stay in that perpetual state of anxiety, depression, not enoughness, feeling unworthy, feeling separate, disconnected, unable to be who we truly are. All that is pain and suffering, like pain and suffering. And yes, it's painful to take the masks off initially, but the more and more that you do that, and the more and more you show up in the world as your authentic self, the more life has to give you. So can you talk about now life after impact? Talk about life, how it is for you now that you are able to stand in who you truly are at 18 years old.
Yeah, I learned that one thing from impact that truly stuck with me is remembering who I am.
Mm.
Because so many times in my life, it's who others wanted me to be, or
Yeah.
what I thought others wanted me to be. Because of course, this whole time I have made it about everyone else, but it is never about the other person. Never. And so this whole time when I thought people were judging me, when people were saying things about me, when I had to fit in, they don't care. It is
Yeah.
not about them. It's about me.
Yeah.
And so for me to be me, it's so much, it's a breath of fresh air. And I hear people say it all the time, be yourself. And that's I always knew, if I just love myself, if I just be myself, it'll be easy. Life will be so much better if I just love myself. But I didn't know how. No
Mm.
matter what I did, I went to different seminars, read different books. My dad would go to these conferences and these groups, crystals, diets. I went to all these different things. I went to therapists, I went to psychologists. Just how do I love myself? I would
Mm.
say it, oh, I love myself, but it wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so finally, it hit me to just do it.
Mm.
This whole time I've been waiting for permission to be me, but no one's giving me permission. No one's
Mm.
coming to save me. Those nights where I would cry myself to sleep in my bed, no one's coming.
Mm.
No one's coming for me. The
Oh my
only way
God.
to be
Yeah, holy
the,
shit, Meeka. Like you saying that and realizing that at 18 is such a freaking miracle. Like I am 54 and just like learning in the last couple of years where I am learning that no one is coming and that the truth of the matter, and it's so beautiful what you're saying, that you had to give yourself permission and that you have to learn to show up for you. You're learning how to source your own inner safety. And it doesn't mean that other people won't be there. I bet you people are showing up for you all the time,
oh
especially
yes.
now, but it had to begin with you. And that's what you're saying. I love that. So keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're learning how to show up for yourself. You're learning now what it means to love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so
And
go ahead.
yes, I learned all of this at 16.
Yeah.
Like that was something so incredible. And I just remember going out and being like, guys, it's so easy. And
Mm.
I keep bringing up impact, but impact is just a tool.
Yeah.
Like one thing that they do is will not tell you the answer. They'll ask a question. And that's something that I've learned is I know the answer. And as I go through
Mm.
life, it's just so easy. It's so simple. Once I took down my walls, I'm able to feel. And again, these walls and these masks that I keep looking at, I would look at as, evil and bad, sick, and wrong. They all had a reason. They all had served a purpose. Because,
Mm.
I built these walls around myself or I put these masks on to protect me.
Yes.
But as building them, I forgot to with building my walls, I forgot to build a door.
Mm. Oh,
And
that's good.
that's, and the walls did serve, the mask did serve.
Yeah.
Because again, God has sent me nothing but angels.
Yeah.
I am an angel. And even sometimes I am the friendliest soul to myself. I am the one that creates the darkness so I can experience my light. So the times where I put the mask on, I experienced my light. Because once I took it off, then I realized who I am. I remember one day I went through this process at Impact. I remember looking in the mirror after that, just looking at it, being like, there you are.
Yeah.
All these years, there you are. And I felt this immense love for me. And I felt an immense love from others. You know, my parents love me so dearly, but I never felt it. They don't tell me all the time, I love you, but I never felt love. My whole life, well, not my whole life, but most of my life, I didn't feel loved. I didn't know what love even felt like until I let it in. You know, it's like that picture with the door. People are waiting on the other side, but only my side has the handle. I can't experience love if I don't love me. And it's like the metaphor of, if I have dirty water, I only give dirty water to others in my life. And I was giving people dirty water. But once I was able to love myself, my water is clean. So I'm giving clean water to everyone in my life. Once I loved me, I was able to experience love. And it wasn't something so hard anymore. Like before, I was just giving all my energy to everything in my life, getting nothing. It's like I was giving my life source energy, giving my light away, but I didn't have any to keep. But
So talk
after I
about that.
realized,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, afterwards I realized light isn't something that just doesn't exist. The light is from within.
Yeah.
So I'm getting this light and this love from other people, like, oh, if my parents love me, I'm able to love others. But no, when I am able to love me, I am able to love others.
Yeah.
It's an internal thing. It's like the infinity sign, it flows in and out. When I breathe, it's that in and out, like
Yes.
that. And so what I love is the same thing. So if it's not coming from me, then it ends.
Yeah.
It's a line.
Exactly. So when you talked about giving out the clean water, so talk about your purpose, because you feel like you have a purpose. There's a reason that you're here. What is your purpose now?
So who I am, I'm a magnificent, loving, joyful woman of light. And why I'm here, my purpose, is by being a magnificent, loving, joyful woman of light. I bring empowerment, grace, presence, and clarity, creating remembrance, gratitude, freedom, and worthiness throughout this beautiful, perfect world and to all of God's wonderful children. And I say that 3 times a day, 3 times each. And that is literally who I am and why I'm here. That's what I discovered when I looked in the mirror and I looked in my own eyes.
Yeah.
I have it hung on my wall. It's being of me.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So I'm trying to, my goal is to want to help bring awareness to parents and teachers so that they can help guide the young people in their lives. They can guide their teenagers, young adults, students to take off the masks. And because you just shared so beautifully the pain that comes with wearing the masks. What can you say from being on that side, being 18, that like if you were to say, if you wanted to talk to parents and teachers, what would you say to them to help the young people in their lives?
So for me, my parents, they tried to take off my mask time and time again, but it's a choice. It took me choosing to do it. And it really was a safe space to do it too.
Mm,
You know, I have a lot of friends who still don't know who they are, who still are having those experiences and that feel like they're lost.
yeah.
And you know, I can't go up to them and say, I can go up to them and shake them and go, wake, like, look at you, you're perfect, you're beautiful. But that doesn't hit them.
Mm,
But what I can do is I can love them for who they are and love them where they're at and show by example. Because again, I
mm,
shared earlier that so many adults are struggling.
yeah.
My I remember my mom and my dad were struggling. And I saw my mom go through impact and I saw her shift and I saw her like begin to take care of her. And again, like once my mom did that, she stopped worrying about every little thing that I'm doing and instead took care of her. Same
Mm,
with my dad. And it was no longer like, let me take care of my depressed daughter. They were taking care of themselves. And especially my dad, I saw a huge shift in him. I was able to get my dad back that I
yeah.
felt like I lost.
Mm,
And so seeing that, I knew I can do that.
mm,
You know, people have told me like, yes, you can love you, but seeing my parents love themselves, I knew I'm okay.
yeah.
It's okay for me to do that.
So modeling,
So
you're saying that modeling is huge, having the adults model for the younger people,
mhm,
how to take care of themselves, do their own inner work, their own inner healing, learn to love themselves. And what you're saying also is that at the end of the day, that no one can really make another person take off the masks if they're not ready. You can't make a person see their
mhm,
true essence. You can't make a person see their light if they're not ready to see their light. But to
yeah, and
just hold them hold space for where they're at and just continuing to shine your own light until they can see theirs. Is that what you're saying then?
yeah, a message I'd give to all those listening is take care of you.
Mm,
Choose you. Because, you know,
mm,
my mom focused so much time and energy on me, taking care of me. My dad too, he'd take me to these self-help seminars and go, let's do this together. We did a diet together, you know,
mm,
being like, let's do this together. But in reality, teenagers and kids, when I was 4 years old, I knew what was happening. That's been my whole life. I have known, you know, I could play stupid or I could play dumb. The kids are so smart. They know. You know, I can tell a kid one thing, but it it's so incredible how wise they are. Even the youth, like I'll say something to a youth and they get it. It's your kids know exactly what's going on. I knew exactly what my parents were going through. They didn't say a word about it. I knew my parents were struggling. They didn't say a word. So my dad, he would tell me, let's do this and this and this to help you. But seeing my dad struggle and tell me how to heal me, it didn't work. It
when he
took my
wasn't,
dad healing him.
yeah, he was
And
telling
then,
you what to do and he wasn't doing it for himself.
yes, but even like the diet we did together, he went on the diet and was like pushing me to go on the diet. I felt like he was just going on the diet so I'd be on a diet. So it didn't
Mm,
work because I knew like his true intention.
mm,
But with impact, he went through impact. I wasn't involved at all. I saw
yeah.
him heal, and then I chose in. So yes,
Oh, that's such a
it's
beautiful message.
yeah, it's if I try to, you know, if I grab my friend and say, "Hey, let's let's go heal," and they don't want to, and I'm just dragging them along, they're not going to get much out of it. It takes
Exactly.
them choosing in. So it's that leading by example that, yeah,
Yeah, I love
it's
that.
doing it.
So just so I guess two final things as we wrap up is one, I mean, you just gave so much wise advice for sure. And if there was like one main message that you wanted to impart with the audience today, what would your main message be? One, and then two, how can people reach out to you or find you after listening to this episode?
I would say to choose you.
Mm.
So many times I see parents choosing their kids, trying to take care of them, but to choose you and to heal you.
Mm.
And ways you can reach out to me is social media, Facebook Messenger, Instagram Messenger, and June 15th through 17th, I'll be staffing this Impact Quest training.
Mm.
So I'll be there. And again, I've shared about Impact training and what it's done for me and what it's done for my family. And Impact is just a tool. It's not the answer. It's not something to seek out and find. Nothing to do with religion. It's not like therapy. I've honestly haven't experienced anything like it. But yeah, I love it. It
Yeah.
honestly saved my life.
Mm.
But I'll be there. So if any of them choose to go through in June, I'll be on the staff. I'll
Awesome.
be in the
That's
background.
so incredible. Such an incredible opportunity for you as well. And I just really want to say that I appreciate, I'm so grateful that you came on and shared your story, that you were so open, so raw, so vulnerable. It's blows my mind how wise you are for 18 and how much healing you've already had. And like, I'm even at the end, I'm hearing you tell me, like, I feel like you're talking to me directly that I need to choose me. I need to take care of me. And that will be the thing to help my kids more than me focusing on trying to fix them or help them. So I'm so grateful that you came on today. And I will make sure that I'll get from you afterwards the name of that children's book. We'll put that in the show notes, and I will put all of your social media, contacts in the show notes as well. So thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you. It's
You
been
did it.
incredible.
Yeah, you did a great job. Thank you. So it's so important that you are sharing the message that you shared today. I'm so glad you were here. So thank you everybody for tuning into another episode of Masks Off. I'm Kim Gross. I hope that you enjoyed this episode and I will see you next time.